So we're going to look at a stock called PGC today. And PGC, honestly, I don't even know what they do. I just happened to look at the books today, and the announcement that came out was a COVID update in the middle of the day. So just an update on the business impacts. And it seems they're tracking 30% below the April 2019 level. Now, for whatever reason, that's apparently good news, which I guess when you look at the chart and you have a look at the absolute abysmal tanking that these guys took, 30%'s not too bad. So if we look at 0.43 and we take off 30%, we're looking at a stock that would reasonably sit at 30 cents based on a reduction of 30% in revenues or profitability. So we have a stock that plummeted from 43 cents at the start of January down all the way to 9 cents. Now it opened up today at 12 and it gapped up all the way to 14.5. Now if we look at Spark, we can see, if I just bring up a replay of the volume, this is going a little bit too fast. If we just have a look at the order book, it just goes nuts from the open. And this is running at 120 times speed, so you can see the buyers are just piling in, and no matter where the sellers come into play, it is just reload after reload after reload. It is a beautiful thing to see. The interest in this stock is pretty high at the moment. We can see a bit of FOMO kicking in. So it grinded for most of the day at this 15 to 15.5 cent level. And eventually there was a bit of a lull for about an hour. So if I skip forward a little bit, maybe play it at a little bit of a faster pace at 300 times speed, you can practically see there just aren't any sellers that are lining up. It's all buyers stacking in. So we can see once 17.5 broke, it just pumped. So you can see a bit of FOMO kicking in there, and we're sitting at 22 cents at the moment, which is a huge pump. Much bigger than I anticipated. I predicted a 14.5 to a 17.5 pump. But then I decided to look at the financials even closer. Now, what I've got here is the half-year documentation, and if we check it out, we can see these guys are running at this for the half-year ended. Okay, it's half-year profits of $1.4 million. Now, to give you some context, this company was sitting at about $40 million market cap at the 12-cent mark. So if I bring up, $40 million at 18, that's not 18 cents. That was at 12 cents when it opened up. So right now, it's sitting at a lot more than that, but it's still possibly very undervalued. Now, this isn't financial advice or recommendation to buy or sell. This is simply an opinion and a bit of analysis on a stock that I found quite interesting. Now, that's not too bad, right? We've got a half-year profit of 1.4, and you can see these guys were a loss-making business initially for a couple of years, and then they just kicked it up to 5 mil profit and 1.4. So keep in mind, these are the half-year results up to December. So the second half of 2019, 2018, and 2017. So if we scroll down even further, now I guess what the most surprising thing about the stock is not so much the profitability, but rather the equity of the stock. Now guys, just to summarize equity real quick once I get to it, equity is simply assets minus liabilities. I like to summarize it as if you were to sell the entire business, close up shop today, that's a real simplistic view, but you would end up with effectively assets minus liabilities. That's what you'd end up with as a dollar value. Now, it's not that straightforward and simple, but I'm just trying to simplify it. So we have a total equity position of $193 million. So you've got a $40 million stock with a $193 million equity. Now, equity doesn't tell the whole story. Of course, you got equity plus you got to look at the future as well of a company. You can't just say this is a $193 million stock. That's not how it works. What you can say though is that this company, if it's sold today, is about $193 million worth in terms of dollar value, and then one has to look at the profitability, and the stock is profitable as we saw in the financial documentation. So these guys are pulling in cash, and so they're net positive, and they've got an equity of $193 million, and they're trading at 40 mil market cap, and they released a COVID-19 statement saying, yeah, look, we're going to take a bit of a hit. A little bit of a hit. 30%, okay? That's a pretty big hit. But as a portion of its revenues, as a portion of its profitability, as a portion of its share price, it doesn't justify a 9-cent drop whatsoever. So that's why you're seeing, even though this news sounds bad, What's worse is the share price drop, and that's why we're seeing a rise in the share price. So this data here is delayed by 20 minutes because I'm using TradingView, but we can see just an epic drop off. So clearly the company hasn't really been doing too well in the eyes of investors and traders in the past. So really, what we're seeing is a hell of an oversold stock. And look, at this point in time here where COVID kicked in, it's not hard for investors to go, yeah, I'm just going to jump ship. And then you go, you had this epic sell-off, a little bit of a bounce, and then people just piling in to sell again. But based on the fundamentals, based on the financials, it's extremely oversold, and the market seems to agree with my sentiment. So I tweeted it out. The moment that the news came out, I didn't really have time to shoot out any real technical fundamental analysis. I just said PGC now because that's where the eyes need to be. That was right as the announcement came out. I took some cash out of it, did a bit of a trade, and that's all she wrote for me really. So we'll see how this goes tomorrow as well in the morning. And I might trade it again as well. But from a fundamentals perspective, this is as clean as it gets for an oversold stock with a COVID-19 update. So that really just de-risks the company in terms of its financial position, its financial standing. So we know where the company is at the moment. We know that they're 30% down from their previous year, April figures, and that's fine. Again, we've got a 30% reduction from a 41-cent target before pre-COVID-19. So I think it would be reasonable to take about 10 cents off, have a 30-cent target. That would be reasonable, that would be rational, but of course the markets aren't reasonable and rational. So while that's a nice target, that's a nice 50% from today's price at 3:54 p.m. So there's 6 minutes left till auction period. We'll see how that goes. See if there's any more FOMO kicking in. Seems to be a bit of sellers showing up at the moment, hitting a high of 22 down to 20. Now, here are some factors that one must consider, right? So it's all well and good that the financials and the fundamentals look solid, at least in my opinion, but one has to also consider that the US, if it drops, if there's some sort of epic drop overnight, look, it's not going to do well. It's as simple as that. The markets are volatile at the moment, so if we zoom out on the US markets, we can see there was a huge, I think that was a 7% drop from the highs, and that all happened overnight in one day. This was back on the 10th to the 11th of June. So do keep that in mind, that no matter how good the fundamentals, no matter how good the technicals, if the US market tanks, the ASX market will tank, and just about every other stock will tank in across the board, basically. So do keep that in mind. Otherwise, that's as good as it gets in terms of an oversold small cap. So this was a small cap. It's now a micro cap because, well, what can you do really once the market bails on it? And let's just have a real quick look. I haven't checked the technicals in terms of Fibonacci retracements, but just out of curiosity, let's see if that lines up with 30 cents by any chance, because that'd be beautiful if it did. Oh, would you look at that? 61.8, bang on 30 cents, which is basically our target, which also happens to be our resistance, technical resistance as well. And that is, of course, if the market does pick up this news and does, in fact, push it tomorrow. Because today, it was a 1 p.m. news event. I think it was 1 p.m. And look, the market doesn't really kick off in the middle of the day. They don't really take too much interest when news kicks off at that time of day. So really the hour of power, which is 3 p.m. onwards, is where you see the volumes really kick in, and that's where it's basically just like 10 a.m. all over again. So we can see here, yeah, bang on 3 o'clock, that's where the volumes just started kicking in and FOMO kicked in. So this would be really interesting to see on open tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure if I'd consider buying on close during the auction. I'll see what the action's like, see what the volumes are like, and if there's much interest. So you can still see, yeah, beautiful, 21. Look, if it closes at its high at 22, then I will absolutely 100% get in on it. There's no way I'm not hopping in at a daily high on news like this with technicals that look as good as this. So again, this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, not a recommendation to buy or sell. This is just an opinion on a stock that I'm trading and will likely be trading this afternoon. Now I've got 3 minutes till close, so I hope you all got something out of this in terms of fundamentals and technicals and what I consider to be perhaps one of the most oversold small cap / micro cap stocks on the ASX at the moment, based on what we know from the financials and from the technicals. Now, having said all that, I still have absolutely no idea what this company does. I don't care. The books look good, the technicals look good, the fundamentals from a financials perspective looks brilliant. So guys, wish you all the best. If you wish to join me, that's up to you, and I wish you all the best in this trade. Thanks guys.